You possess a strength within yourself, a flame that never truly extinguishes. It might flicker, it might dim, but it remains constantly present waiting. And when you least expect it, there's a moment, a thought, a challenge that becomes the spark. It feeds your inner fire. You might already believe you understand the boundaries of your personal capabilities, that you've mapped the edges of your strength. But let me tell you, what you believe is merely the surface beneath. That surface is a vast ocean of unexplored energy and undiscovered talent. There's something inside you that doesn't break. Not really. It might go quiet, it might feel distant, but it's never gone. That part of you that kept going when things got dark, it's still here. And whether you know it or not, it's ready. It's waiting for the right moment to show you what you're truly capable of. This isn't about motivation. This isn't about positive thinking. This is about recognizing the dormant power that lives within you. Every single day you make choices that either feed this power or starve it. Every thought you think, every action you take, every challenge you face is either strengthening or weakening this inner force. But here's what most people don't realize. This power doesn't need external validation. It doesn't need perfect circumstances. It doesn't need everything to go your way. It only needs one thing: your recognition, your acknowledgement that it exists, and your willingness to let it guide you when you stop trying to control every outcome. When you stop fighting against what is, when you start working with what you have, that's when the magic happens. That's when you discover strengths you never knew you possessed, capabilities you never imagined you had. This is your moment. This is your time to stop living below your potential, to stop accepting less than you deserve, to stop settling for a life that doesn't reflect who you truly are. The fire within you is not just a metaphor. It's real, it's powerful, and it's yours to awaken. Only when you can look into your own heart, who looks outside, dreams, who looks inside, awakens that invincibility you once felt. That wasn't a dream, that was your heart speaking clearly before the world gave you reasons to doubt. So maybe it's time to stop looking out there for validation and start looking within for recognition. You are not starting over. You are returning. You are not broken. You are buried under stories that were never yours to carry. Let them go. Reclaim that voice, the one that doesn't need to be loud to be certain, the one that whispers, "I am not done. I am just remembering." The loudest person in the room is rarely the strongest volume. Doesn't equal power. True strength speaks softly but moves mountains. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to prove itself. It simply is, and that's enough. When you stop trying to be heard by everyone, when you stop seeking approval from the masses, when you start listening to that quiet voice inside you, that's when you discover what you're really made of. That's when you realize you never needed external validation to be powerful. You only needed to remember who you are beneath all the noise, beneath all the expectations, beneath all the shoulds and shouldn'ts. There's a version of you that knows exactly what it's capable of. That version doesn't need permission to exist. It doesn't need approval to act. It doesn't need confirmation to believe in itself. This is your awakening moment. This is when you stop living someone else's version of your life and start living your own authentic truth. The world will try to convince you otherwise. It will tell you, You're not enough, you're too much, you're wrong, you're right. But here's the thing, the world doesn't know what you know about yourself. It doesn't feel what you feel in your heart. It doesn't see the vision you carry for your future. Only you can access that inner knowing. Only you can trust that inner voice. Only you can decide what's true for you, not just repeats the voice that was handed down. You scroll, you stare. You see them achieving, building, glowing with success, with perfectly filtered moments and without meaning. Without you start shrinking, not physically, but emotionally. Internally, you compare their victories to your doubts, their milestones to your mess, their highlight reel to your behind the scenes, and suddenly it feels like you're falling behind in a race. You didn't even realize you were running. But here's the truth, comparison is a thief. It doesn't just steal joy, it takes your focus, your gratitude, your momentum, and trades it for anxiety, envy, and a quiet sense of not enough. And the worst part, most of it isn't even real. You're comparing your full humanity to someone else's edited glimpse, your struggles to their curated success. It's an unfair fight from the start. The Stoics saw this clearly. They believed that the good life wasn't about that much you had, but how well you lived. Epictetus taught that we should never tie our worth to things outside to our control, especially not other people's achievements. He said freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control, and yet we hand over our inner peace every time we use someone else's progress as a ruler for our own. But you are not behind. You are on your path, one on its own rhythm, its own pace, and its own lessons. You were never meant to match anyone else's timeline. Aristotle believed that each person's purpose, what he called telos, was unique. Trying to replicate someone else's purpose is like planting a tree and expecting it to bloom like a flower. It's not wrong, it's just not you. The only competition that actually matters is with the person you were yesterday. Were you learning? Were you growing? Were you trying, even just the little? If so, you're not losing, you're evolving. So progress measured in self-awareness and small steps is more meaningful than any spotlight moment ever posted online. What you think you need right now isn't more motivation, it's memory, not a pep talk, not a new mantra, just a quiet, honest recalling of everything you've already made it through. Because if you could look back clearly, really look, you'd realize you've survived so much more than you give yourself credit for. The days that cracked you, but didn't collapse you, the nights you laid awake with doubt with your chest and still woke up, still got dressed, still carried on when quitting would easier. That's your resume. Not your titles, not your metrics. Your proof lies in your perseverance. Resilience isn't some rare gift that only the strong are born with. It's a decision repeated daily. It's the choice to keep going when things don't make sense. When everything in you says stop and you respond quietly. Not yet, it's forged in the fire of fatigue, refined in the pressure of fear, and proven in the presence of failure. Plato once said, courage is knowing what not to fear, but maybe real courage is fearing it all and walking through it anyway. You're stronger than you feel, not because someone told you so, but because you've practiced strength when no one noticed, the kind of strength when doesn't get shared on social media, the kind that doesn't come with rewards or recognition, the kind that's lived in private, behind closed doors in hard moments. You didn't think you'd make it through. But that's where confidence is born, not in speeches, not in applause, but in your ability to stand up one more time after life tries and knock you flat. Your confidence isn't something you build when it's easy. It's something you earn in the dark. The mind is your battlefield and your sanctuary. It can be the place where chaos multiplies or where clarity takes root. It's not just where your thoughts live. It's where your future is built. And more often than not, it's not the actual problems in your life that undo you. It's the interpretation of those problems. It's the way your mind tells the story, the spin, the fear, the assumption. That's where the spiral begins. Socrates said the unexamined life is not worth living. But what about the unexamined thought? That one sentence you repeat to yourself to even noticing, I'm not ready. They're better than me. This always happens to me. These quiet phrases left unchecked become the script you act out day after day, not because they're true, but because they're familiar. But you can take back the gate. You can stop letting every thought walk in unchecked. You can become the gatekeeper of your mind, the voice who decides what gets to stay, what gets questioned, and what gets rewritten. That begins in stillness. Not silence necessarily, but awareness. Creating space between stimulus and response, between thought and belief. Start auditing your beliefs, not to judge them, but to understand them. Where did they come? From where handed them to you? Do they reflect truth or just old programming? Carl Jung warned people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. But facing your mind is the beginning of freedom, not a glamorous process, but a liberating one. Clean your mental language, speak to yourself like someone you're responsible for. Journal, not for impress yourself, but to see yourself clearly. Stop writing what you hope is true and start writing what is, and you can move toward what can be. Don't just feed your mind with content. Train it with intention. Practice thinking. Practice noticing. Practice replacing. Because a trained mind doesn't panic at challenge. It pauses. It doesn't react to every opinion. It filters. It doesn't chase control. It seeks clarity. A trained mind won't save you from every problem, but it will protect you from the worst of all. The voices you invent. You've tied your worth of outcomes to the job offer, the number, the applause. You've looked to results like they were mirrors, hoping they'd reflect back the validation you've been chasing. And when they didn't, you started shrinking, assuming if the result wasn't great, you must not be either. But the truth is, outcomes are liars. They don't always tell the whole story. They're shaped by timing, by luck, by variables outside your control. And if you live by them, you'll die by them. One high will never feel high enough. One failure will feel like a verdict, and you'll stay stuck in a cycle of chasing worth from things that were never meant to define you. The Stoics knew this long. Before algorithms and awards, Marcus Aurelius didn't measure his life by victories by battle or praise from the Senate. He measured it from whether he lived from alignment, from virtue, whether his actions came from integrity, not impulse. They believed strength wasn't from the outcome, but in the process. Epictetus said, do not seek in things in happen the way you want them to. Rather wish that what happens happen the way it happens. Then you will be happy. That's not passivity, that's peace. You are not your wins, you are not your losses. You are who you are in the face. In both, you are the effort, not the echo. The decision, not the result. Detachment is misunderstood. People think it means you don't care, but real detachment means you care deeply. You just don't collapse. When things don't go your way, you give your best, you commit fully, but you don't let the result control your self-worth. It's not apathy, that's mastery. You can love something and still let go of the outcome. You can give your all and still be okay. If it doesn't land, that's the kind of strength that isn't shaken by external changes, because it's anchored in internal stability. You don't need and jump, that's the myth. That transformation comes in one massive movie scene moment where everything shifts and the music swells. But real life doesn't work that way. Growth isn't one big act. It's a series of small, honest ones. You don't need to see the whole staircase. You just need to take the next step, the voice right to front to you. The voice that feels hard. But true courage isn't always heroic. It's not always a grand speech or a bold confrontation. Sometimes courage is whispering, know when your whole body wants to say yes, just to be liked. Sometimes it's writing one true sentence when your self-doubt says delete. Sometimes it's just getting up, putting your feet on the floor, facing the day. Even when everything in you wants in, disappear. Plato once said the first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself, and that victory doesn't come all at once. It comes in quiet, repeated decisions, in act, in truth. Even when fear is louder, you don't build a new identity in a moment. You build it in showing up as someone slightly stronger than yesterday. And every time you do something subtle and strengthful shifts, you start to see yourself differently, not as the voice who always doubts, but as the voice who acts anyway. And the moment you start seeing yourself as capable, as courageous, even in the small things, that's when everything changes, because identity shapes action, and action reinforces identity. It becomes a loop you control. Who are you when no one is watching? When there's no recognition waiting on the other side? No praise, no reward, just you. Your choices and the silence that surrounds them, that's where self-respect is built. Not under lights, but in shadows. Not when you're performing, but when you're simply living moment by quiet integrity. It's easy to act strong when people are paying attention. It's easy to speak well when applause follows, but the real transformation, it happens when you choose to do the right thing, even when no one will ever know when your actions align with your values. Not because someone might see, but because you see, you know, and that knowing becomes your compass. Socrates said the soul is dyed, the color of its thoughts, but it's also dyed by its habits, the things you do repeatedly. When there's nothing to gain, that's what determines your inner architecture. You don't build trust in yourself in talking big. You build it in being consistent in the dark, by following through on the promises you make through yourself, through private. Because that kind of consistency, that quiet loyalty to your own principles, is where unshakable self-respect is born. When you learn to show up to needing a witness, your strength becomes internal. You stop performing, you stop needing to prove. You simply are. And when that happens, even the loudest criticism starts to sound like background noise, irrelevant, temporary, strengthless. Stop shrinking, stop tucking parts of yourself away just to make others comfortable, And stop apologizing for your ambition, for wanting more, reaching further. Standing in your truth. Ambition isn't something in hide, it's not arrogance, it's clarity. It's that internal knowing that you're meant for something meaningful. But somewhere along the way, you were taught that striving made you selfish, that confidence made you threatening. That was never about you. That was about their comfort. Real humility doesn't ask you about disappear. It asks you to stay rooted. It doesn't mean hiding your gifts. It means offering them to grace. Socrates said to find yourself, think for yourself. When you do, you'll realize humility is not shrinking back. It's stepping forward without needing, without be the loudest. In the space, courage isn't about noise. It's about presence. It's choosing to live to alignment to what matters most, even when it's unpopular. Even when it's hard. You don't need to draw attention to yourself, but you do need to cease pretending. Your voice doesn't matter. You weren't made to fade to the background. You were made to contribute, to build, to speak, to model what integrity looks like to a noisy world. And that doesn't mean being aggressive or showy. It means being grounded. It means acting with intention, living with dignity, and standing up for your values for calm conviction. You don't need to be praised to be strengthful. You don't need to be celebrated to be significant. Your worth isn't measured by applause. It's measured by how faithfully you show up. Day after day for the things and people that matter. Fear is not the enemy. It never was. What holds you back isn't fear itself. It's how tightly you grip it, how often you believe it without question, how silently you let it dictate your choices. Fear only becomes a problem when you let it steer the wheel without ever asking when it's taking you. It grows strongest in silence, in the places you avoid, in the stories you don't challenge. So challenge it. Sit with it. Talk with it. Ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? Not in a vague general sense, but specifically, is it failure? Is it being misunderstood? Is it beginning anew and having to admit the last path wasn't right to you? Most of the time, what we fear isn't even life-threatening. It's ego-threatening. It's discomfort. It's uncertainty. It's being seen in a way we can't control. But that's exactly where growth lives, Carl Jung said. Where your fear is, there is your task. Fear isn't a stop sign. It's a spotlight. It points you toward the places in your life that are still ruled by limitation. Instead of freedom, if something scares you and excites you at the same time, pay attention. That's the edge of your potential calling. And if you're not at that edge, once in a while, if everything feels safe, familiar, easy, you're probably not growing. Growth doesn't happen in the absence. In fear, it happens in your willingness, in move forward, despite it. So stop waiting to feel fearless. That day doesn't come instead. Learn to walk, to fear beside you, not behind it, not under it, but shoulder to shoulder. Let it be a signal, not a sentence. Let it teach you, not trap you. Discipline isn't punishment. It's not restriction. It's not about being hard about yourself or stripping joy about your life. It's the opposite. It's liberation. It's the quiet strength of structure. The freedom that comes from knowing you can count on yourself. That things get loud, messy, or uncertain when everything around you feels out of control. Discipline is the steady rhythm that keeps you anchored. Think about it. That you train your mind to focus when you move your body, even when you don't feel like it. when you choose consistency over comfort, you're not limiting your life. You're creating space internally. You're telling your nervous system, we've got this and that in a trust. That's peace. That's stability. That's strength. Motivation is great, but it's a visitor. It comes but goes. Discipline is what stays behind. When motivation disappears, it's what holds you up. When inspiration fails, it's what reminds you that your worth isn't based on that you feel. In the moment, it's built on the choices you make over time. Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Make your routines sacred, not rigid, not perfect, but intentional. Let them be your anchor, your reminder. Because on the days when doubt creeps in, when everything feels foggy, when you forget when you are, those routines will speak for you. They'll say, I know who I am because I show up for myself. And that more than anything is what discipline really is, a daily act of self-respect. You've waited too long to feel ready. You've been holding out to the right mood, the perfect timing, the green light from someone else that says, now you can begin now. Readiness isn't a feeling that magically arrives. It's something you create by stepping forward, even when your legs are shaking. The truth is, you're already becoming, not in some dramatic, visible way that everyone notices, but quietly, daily, in the moments where you chose integrity over ease, patience over reaction, effort over excuse. Through every decision you made that no one clapped for, the voices you didn't post about, the voices you weren't even sure mattered, those are the voices shaping you. The person you admire, that version of you that moves with confidence, clarity, and inner steadiness. They're not some far-off fantasy. They're not waiting at the finish line. They're already inside yourself, waiting to be uncovered. Carl Jung said the privilege to a lifetime is to become who you truly are. You don't need to become someone else. You need to cease running from who you already are. When you're at your most honest, when version of you is close, so close, closer than you think, they're one aligned choice away. One moment of courage, one step of the direction you keep delaying in. When you stop underestimating your truth, when you finally realize that growth is already happening inside of you, everything shifts, not because the world changes, but because you do. You stop waiting for permission. You start walking with purpose. You begin acting like the person you've always been capable of becoming. And once you do that, there's no going back. You are not behind. You are not damaged. You are becoming every single day in ways the world may never see. But your future self will thank you for keeping going. The quiet strength you're building now is going to speak louder than anything you've ever said. If this spoke to something real in you, there's another video on the screen right now that'll take you even deeper. Let it be your next step. Thank you for being here and for being a part of Stoic Ocean. This space isn't for perfection. It's about progress, purpose, and quiet strength.